Our Calling, short story by JameliaAlicia. Long ago, far in the lands of Britain, lived two twin brothers named Richard and John Alfredson. They were destined by two sacred roses, one red rose representing Viking blood, and one white rose representing Anglo-Saxon blood. The fall of two flags dropped to the ground to mark the end of the reign of their father, Alfred II. The sound of drums was heard from the fields along the island's coast, known as Stormageddon. "Do you know what the prophecy said?" Richard Alfredson said in a quiet voice to his brother in the chapel in Stormageddon Forest. "I do not foretell what is going to happen in the Battle of Stormageddon tomorrow evening. All I know, we have to rely on God to hold clear paths for us." John folds his hands in silent prayer as he stands behind his brother in the chapel. Whistling of robins was heard outside the chapel to mark the beginning of the luck for the War of Stormageddon. This was no ordinary war. This marked the beginning of something powerful and holy to the two soon-to-be united kingdoms. The day after came. Hands, robes, swords, and shields were put in place for war. Light hymns were sung and prayers begun under fires to maintain heat from the cold air of war. Richard and John were standing next to each other while preparing their horses for war. The soldiers stood in a circle while Richard and John came in to join the group prayers. "Let's begin," Richard and John said. The prayer started uniting both ancient Viking words of their forefathers and prayers of newfound forefathers as the two lands of Viking and Anglo-Saxon blood were combined. Nervousness and tensions filled the air, replaced with willpower and the godly presence of omniscient power. And battle had begun. Roars and the sound of swords in the air filled the atmosphere with smoke and mist. Faces were making the soldiers look like walking ghosts. Richard and John were on their horses, riding into the battlefield with a protective veil around them. Everything was starting to turn deadly and sinister. The opposing side had swords which sliced and took innocent lives away. Yet their hearts were silent and concealed behind the armor of truth of uniting both bloodlines together. The battlefield trembled beneath the hooves of war horses as Richard Alfredson raised his sword toward the gray heavens above Stormageddon. Rain began to fall lightly upon the shields of soldiers standing behind him. Their armor glistened beneath the dim evening sky, while the cries of ravens circled overhead like messengers of fate. John rode